Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim O'Brien. I'm the Senior Executive Editor of Bloomberg Opinion. This is our Tuesday morning politics live stream. I'm joined today by two smarties, my colleagues Frank Wilkinson and Nia Malika Henderson. They are both political and policy columnists for us. And we're here this morning to delve into the complex and not that complex, tragicomic, but nonetheless pivotal relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Prompted by Elon Musk's recent declaration that he intends to launch a third party because he is profoundly irked about Trump's BBB, the big beautiful bill, and all of its attendant impacts on average Americans and the quality of life in America, which we can also discuss a little bit. So to tee this off, before we get into a discussion of third-party machinations and whether any of this is realistic, I don't think any of us really think it is, but there's a lot to talk about around that anyway. I wanted to talk about the evolution of the Donald Trump, Elon Musk relationship, which has been brief but profound. It sort of tracks with Trump's relationship with crypto, but that's for another day. Nia, when you look at the trajectory of what's happened between Musk and Trump, from Musk really not being committed at all to politicking on behalf of Trump, to then going all in and putting his both his money and his marketing mojo behind the Trump campaign, to having influence in the White House, to not having influence in the White House, to now. What sort of stands out for you, or what resonates for you?
The trajectory that they've had has been a lot like the trajectory that Donald Trump had with other rich folks and billionaires. The first term, they didn't really like him. And then coming into this term, and in some ways a pivotal moment for some of these folks was around the assassination attempt. People began to be on board with him. Musk poured $250 million into his campaign, appeared in various swing states, particularly places like Pennsylvania, pouring money into that race, and became immediately a kind of best friend of Donald Trump. Once he won the election, in those months before he actually moved back into the White House, he was always down at Mar-a-Lago. Trump seemed to really like his kid also being around. At one point, there was sort of a DM between them, where Trump was like, "Oh, where's your kid?" I think the kid's name is X.
If Donald Trump actually likes any kid hanging around.
Yeah. And so he was this pivotal figure. You almost saw Donald Trump hand over the first couple of months of his presidency to Elon Musk. He was doing all of the cuts. He was making all of the news when USAID was closed down. When all of those cuts came to the federal agencies, it was Musk who was wielding the chainsaw, both literally and figuratively, and making those massive cuts. And, I wrote about Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and really talked about Elon Musk as sort of a force multiplier for Donald Trump. Here he had the fame, the stature, sort of a global fame, and billions of dollars at his disposal. And as many predicted, and I say I wasn't really one of these people, I kind of thought their relationship would last because it was so mutually beneficial. It made Donald Trump even a bigger figure than he was. So I had imagined that he would find Elon Musk useful. And also, it seemed to me that he actually liked Elon Musk, right? He was sort of amused by him. He was kind of a parlor trick when he took to, parties. He was a figure in his own right. But of course, as we know with Donald Trump, these relationships tend to be transactional, and Elon Musk began to see that some of what Donald Trump was doing was against his interests. BBB, for instance, it explodes spending, it cuts back on some of the EV, investments and benefits that Elon Musk got. And so here you have now this real rift with Elon Musk now threatening a third party. He had said before that, he's talking about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. That seems to be something that's a part of this too, where he thinks he can sort of slice off a part of MAGA. But we'll see about that. But it has been a dynamic relationship. And at this point, it seems to be sort of beyond repair.
Frank, I was in a different direction than Nia about the Musk-Trump relationship, and I was wrong in the early stages. I didn't think it would work out for much more than a nanosecond, and I was wrong about that. And then when it did, and then I sort of saw Musk as this person willing to do the stuff Trump didn't want to do himself, not strategically or from a policy perspective, but Trump didn't have the patience or interest in actually trying to cut back the federal bureaucracy and dealing with the nuts and bolts of all of that. And I think he thought he could, hand that off to Musk, and then discovered Musk, like Trump, also has absolutely no patience with that kind of stuff. And, but, early on, I thought Musk was going to quickly follow the Steve Bannon trajectory of Trump 1.0, which was when Bannon was on the cover of Time, as the architect of Trumpism. His time would be short thereafter, which indeed it was. And Musk wound up on the cover of Time sitting at the Resolute desk in a drawing at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. But he ended up having a little bit more staying power than Bannon. Where did you land on all of that, Frank, as you watched it?
Well, I was a little confused by it at first, but in retrospect, I think you see a classic use job. I mean, Trump, I have discounted Trump's strategic acumen over many years, but he used Elon Musk brilliantly. And there's a series of headlines that came out last week that I think suggest how well he did. There's a study out by the Lancet that the USAID cuts are going to lead to 14 million deaths in just 5 years. All the headlines I saw about that said Musk had spearheaded this. Musk was appointed by Donald Trump. He was a functionary in Donald Trump's administration. And somehow this is Elon Musk who's responsible for these millions of deaths and not Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump got a couple of $100 million. He got somebody to take the heat on a lot of absolutely insane and incompetent cuts to the federal bureaucracy. And last week we see headlines about the subsequent deaths, and it's Musk in the headline and not Donald Trump. So I don't know exactly what Elon Musk got out of this other than an enormous hit to the Tesla brand and Tesla stock, but you can very clearly see what Donald Trump got out of it.
Yeah, I do think Musk went into it just as transactionally as Trump did, and expected, I think, that and there's still, I think he expected his proximity to Trump to give him policy benefits that would accrue to his businesses and his wealth. And I think he's part of the Silicon Valley brotherhood that wants a federal government shaped in its interests and not necessarily in the public's interests. But I think that Trump and Musk are actually so similar. And I think to a certain extent, Trump stood in awe of Musk, as he does of all authentically self-made wealthy people, because Trump is not authentically self-made, even though he says he is. And I think he tends to give deference to billionaires that he doesn't give to other people. And I think he did want Musk to have some autonomy and room to roam within the federal government through Doge. And I think that because who Musk is, he kind of blew that up. But I also think that program itself was never really designed to deal with the size of the federal government. It was performative. But do you think I'm giving it short shrift, Nia?
Well, listen, I think it certainly was meant to eviscerate DEI initiatives in the federal government, right? I mean, they focus like a laser. If you looked at Doge's early Twitter interactions, he was, very specifically going after people who were involved in DEI initiatives. Federal workers just a couple of days ago got this notice saying, listen, if there's anybody who is involved in DEI, giving grants to DEI programs or in any way involved in that, please let us know, essentially snitch on these people. And of course, we know that a lot of the DEI efforts are spearheaded by women, by people of color. And in that way, they really, I think, set back a lot of the gains African Americans have made in terms of entree into the middle class over the last many decades. So that was a real purpose of it, and it has worked in that way. But I do think there was, obviously, for somebody like Musk, he got a real window into the workings of the federal government. He got data. He got a sort of a trove of access.
And we still don't know how much data they actually harvested and what they're going to do with that.
We have no idea, and we have no idea what they have and to what benefit that's going to accrue for Elon Musk going forward. But in so many ways, he certainly was. I mean, and Frank talked about this, a heat shield for Donald Trump. You saw some of, I think, the fraying happen around this Wisconsin race, right? There's a Wisconsin race for a state Supreme Court judge. Elon Musk is all in. This is Elon Musk announcing that he wants to be a permanent player on the Republican side of the ledger in politics. He goes all in, and the Democrats win that race. And so in that way, the sort of magic that Elon Musk promised, I think, to Republicans, that he would be this fountain of money and muscle into their coffers, seemed to kind of take a hit with certainly Donald Trump, and I think with other Republicans as well. And so that too, I think, was a turning point. And we see now the evidence that this is a relationship that has frayed, and it could cost Donald Trump something. We don't know what, because in many ways, I do think Donald Trump sort of won this battle between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Early on, it was, oh, Elon Musk has all of this money, and Elon Musk has a following too. But when Donald Trump pulled out the real Trump card, which was, listen, I control your wealth in many ways through these government contracts. And to the extent that you've made all of these Doge cuts, the real cut would be the government contracts that you get. You saw Elon Musk.
SpaceX, his rocket company, for example.
Yeah. You saw Elon Musk back down a bit, and now he's back. I think one of the unknown factors here is going to be, what do people at Tesla want, right? What does the board of Tesla want? And you see some misgivings now, again, about him entering into politics. After, was it in April that he said, oh, he's done. I'm done with politics.
I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson not learned.
Frank, I just to put a bow on Trump, Musk, and Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency. They came in claiming they would reinvent government. They felt it was a massively suffocating and oppressive force in American life. Somehow overlooking the fact that governments build roads, bridges, fire departments, schools, police stations, pays for the military, provides emergency services and disasters, et cetera, et cetera. But anyone who actually wants to take on the math of that has to look at entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, plus defense spending, and then all of the interest payments we are now paying on federal debt, which cumulatively account for the lion's share of federal spending. Instead, they targeted employees who represent a vanishingly small part of federal spending. And meaningful portions of those employees are dedicated public servants who are good at their jobs, and that expertise has been shredded. So I do take Nia's point that they made a lot of progress towards goals like trying to eviscerate DEI initiatives and to present to the American voters that they were getting rid of a bloated and wasteful workforce. But they also didn't really get at any of the big things they claimed they were going to do, right?
Well, what they claim and what they actually want are not always the same, as we know. I don't think they could possibly have been stupid enough to think, oh, the real bulk of the federal government spending is in people who work in the bowels of the Department of Labor. Everyone knows it's not true. It's, it's the old phrase that the US government is an insurance company with an army, right? So that's where the money is. Now, obviously, they put a bunch of, 20 somethings in charge of making these cuts, and they made a lot of cuts that are inefficient even on their own terms. But I don't think that they were going after the real money of the federal government. I think, one, it was, as you said, performative. And this was a message to the MAGA base. Look, we told you we're going to attack the federal government, and look at us. I've got a chainsaw, So there was a theatrical component of this. And there is, let's face it, a part of the MAGA aesthetic is and policy is to attack expertise. I mean, you don't put Robert F. Kennedy in charge of healthcare if you want expertise. You are attacking
Kristi Noem at Homeland Security.
Just go down the line,
right? On and on.
Right,
yeah.
On and on. So it was a way to go after the deep expertise that is in the federal bureaucracy, and that people don't recognize that there are people who have 30 years of experience and really know what they're doing. And losing those people is to cut loose those bureaucracies from a very valuable expertise. But if you want to attack expertise, what they did was quite valuable. If you want to attack spending, it wasn't very significant.
Yeah, I often think of some of these developments as in both the Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0 as tragicomic, and maybe I should stop seeing the comic side of these things. But it does strike me as tragicomic that Elon Musk, the wealthiest man in the world, the founder of game-changing companies in both the automobile and space exploration industries, somehow didn't foresee that the guy he had hitched his wagon to politically was serious about wanting to gut federal support for electric vehicles, and wanted to pursue a tax and spending policy that was going to continue to bloat the federal government, and then became part of that administration, and is now so irked that Trump is defenestrating policies that actually benefited Musk's own business interests, particularly at Tesla, and is pursuing fiscal policies that Musk finds aberrant. He's now so irked that he wants to launch a third party. It is curious to me that Elon Musk could not have foreseen any of this.
Well, listen, he is a genius at some things and a novice at many others. I don't know if he imagined that his influence could steer the ship in a way that would be ultimately beneficial to him, or if he was like a lot of other voters, and a lot of the focus groups showed this, that a lot of people didn't believe, supposedly, that Donald Trump would do what he said he was going to do in office. It turns out that he's doing all of it for the most part. Project 2025 is alive and well, and a lot of it has been accomplished. But it could be that Elon Musk was in that basket of voters who just didn't necessarily believe Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric would actually be the way that he governed when he was in office. There is this tendency, I think, for people who are successful in one realm to imagine that they're going to be successful in another. And it often just isn't true. I mean, Michael Jordan was terrible at baseball. He was great at basketball. He's terrible at baseball.
You and I can't paint.
Yes, yeah. And so I think there is that sort of delusion that a lot of sort of observers of geniuses kind of carry a sort of bias towards excellence in everything. And so Elon Musk has proven that he was a terrible judge of Donald Trump, of what he would do in office, and really essentially misunderstood government in and of itself. And so now he is taking his lack of expertise but bucket loads of money into starting this third party, the America Party. Whether or not there is a real market for that is anybody's guess. I mean, if history is any judge, you have voters who are frustrated with both parties and they say, oh, we hate the duopoly, we want a third party. But when it comes down to it, there is no real market, that voters basically vote Democrat or Republican.
To continue on that line, Frank, I think of the old children's cartoon show, The Flintstones. And when Bam Bam would get upset, he'd take out his little club and start breaking things and run around the house being Bam Bam.
I think I know where this is going.
I mean, you're a lot older than I am, so I think that cartoon was more central to your childhood than mine. But for anybody in the audience who didn't see it, Bam Bam would get upset and run around breaking things. And I sort of have imagined Elon Musk in the wake of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and reading its actual contours and seeing Trump ram this through both the Senate and the House and signing it on the 4th of July. And I guess thinking this would never come to pass. And now he sees it come to pass. And like Bam Bam, he is so angry that he's looking for whatever club he can put his hands on. And in this case, it's a third-party challenge to Trump and the Republican Party. What do you make of that?
To me, he has the capacity to be a chaos monkey. And he has that capacity because both he has, enormous fame, and so he's got a microphone whenever he wants one, but he has still staggering amounts of money. If, for instance, let's just say he didn't say anything about a third party. Let's say he said, I'm going to make the Republican Party pay for this damaging, anti-futuristic policies that they've just adopted, where they're going to, I'm trying to decarbonize the world with my wonderful cars, and here they go recarbonizing it, right? You could start today in a lot of House districts, 10, 12 districts, not that many, not that much money, because there are no other political ads on right now. It's a little bit cheaper to run things. He could make attacks on Republicans in a coherent, strategic way that would begin to erode support in some key House districts that would help Democrats. He doesn't want to do that, I don't think. And it's not a big enough platform for him. So the idea of a third party probably appeals to his ego. It probably is less of a threat to the Republican Party than if he actually went at some of these individual candidates in marginal districts. So, there are things that he could do with his money to cause damage. This does not, to my mind, look like one of them. He's talking about picking a couple of Senate races and a few House districts. As a third party, as Nia was saying, unless you're changing the structure of American elections, you're changing the first past the post structure. You're offering, multi-candidate or multi-seat districts, that sort of thing, that alters the chemistry and the strategic, motivations of both voters and candidates in these districts. You're not really going to have an impact. Maybe in one race, you might peel off 5%, and that'd be enough to elect the Democrat instead of the Republican. But it's not going to be a viable vehicle for you unless you can change those structural inhibitions. And he's done nothing, so far as I know, to do that, and probably hasn't thought a great deal about it, although I'm sure he's being advised about them now. But, money alone and a third party is not going to get him much. I mean, we've all know the history of third parties over the last, century and more in this country. Ross Perot got 18% in 92. That was a peak. You had, from Alabama, George Wallace in 68. I think he won 5 states. That's the high water mark. And Elon Musk looks very unlikely to come close to that high water mark with a party. He could get he could get some impact with money.
Well, let's stay on that for a second. I think table stakes, I think we're just launching a nationwide initiative is around $50 million. It can easily escalate up from that. I don't think, as you noted, I think that is money Musk has, and many other well-heeled Americans have that much money. But I think the logistics, beyond just the money of getting on ballots, you need tens of thousands of ballot signatures in every state. And then there are arcane rules in every state that both Democrats and Republicans are interested in preserving, because the party meisters in both parties are interested in not having intrusions from any third party movements. In New York, for example, I don't think you can have the word America or American in a party name on a ballot initiative, which I guess Elon Musk should have considered before he called his third party movement the American Party. But Nia, he's, the things that led him astray at Doge, which has led Trump astray in many managerial things, is it's the details. It's, the boring grunt work and knitting you need to do to get these things off the ground. And as Frank noted, I don't know that Musk is built to really dig in to the minutia of ballot initiatives and to continue funding it over a long term in order to give it traction. There are undoubtedly political operatives who will say they will do this for him and are willing to not worry about Trump exiling them from the GOP if they do it, because they'll get paid well. But it is, the devil is in the details. And in this case, Musk won't necessarily be a details guy.
Right. I mean, he is someone like Trump who operates on emotion, right? And in this case, it's anger at Donald Trump, and he wants retribution against Donald Trump and the Republicans he thinks who have betrayed him on the Hill. It's unclear to me who would be a Musk candidate, right? I mean, there's one thing to have a third party. Is he running America Party candidates in these 5 or 6 House districts in the Senate in 2028? Who is the kind of Musk America Party standard bearer? I mean, I guess you could find somebody. I understand he's, for instance, talking to Andrew Yang, who had another failed third party, the Forward Party, which didn't amount to much. We've seen this with a couple of different parties. I can't think of there was a party last go around that tried to field somebody to run. The name, I got mommy brain right now. I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, this has been an effort and a failed one many times over in past elections. And I think for Musk, he certainly doesn't have the focus on details and the diligence to follow through. And again, I think at some point we're going to have a flashback to April when he essentially said, "I'm done with politics." And part of that was because his business was taking a hit. I think his stock plunged a little bit more on Monday. I think it was like down 7% or something with this news about the America Party. So at some point, I do think,
and Tesla's sales being down.
Yeah, Tesla sales being down and his brand being down. If you look back at October 2020, his unfavorable was about 20%. It is now 55%, and it's because of his dalliance with Donald Trump and the people who did like him, sort of the crunchy granola folks who drove the Teslas because they wanted to save the planet. They've sort of turned on Elon Musk at this point, and so he became a MAGA bro. And now that the king of MAGA has turned on him, I don't know what that leaves him in terms of any kind of a party and any kind of brand that he could assemble.
A lesson from Nia: don't take progressive voters' granola away from them. Frank, I want to kind of step up at the 35,000 foot level here for a second, but the framers of the Constitution never envisioned parties, and they had a suspicion of parties. It was the people in the trenches in later years, the Martin Van Burens of the world, who ended up sort of understanding that parties had organizing value and vote gathering value. We're now in an era where a meaningful number of voters feel homeless. They don't feel entirely comfortable in the Democratic Party or in the Republican Party. What does that mean strategically for candidates in this day and age?
They feel homeless until November. And that's the problem that independent candidacies and third parties have had. And, there are people who would disagree with that assessment, who say, look, if you give people multiple parties and give them the choice to find a niche instead of these, an American party, Republican Party or Democratic Party in a presidential year has to get 80 million votes. I mean, that's a big party. That has to include an awful lot of people who don't agree with one another on a lot of issues, just perforce. I mean, there's no other way around that. So if you were to break that monolith into smaller pieces, and give people multiple parties on the left, multiple parties on the right, then you would have that system. But in the meantime, we still have a first past the post system where you have to get the most votes in that race. And that invariably leads to a strategic decision for a voter who says, do I want to throw my vote away to Ralph Nader in 2000 and because I don't like the way Al Gore talks, or do I want to preserve the possibility of gaining 60% of the policies that I want, even if I have to forego the other 40%. And what you see time and again in US politics is that voters pretty much go for that 60%, by going with the Republican Party, even if they're a libertarian, by going with the Democratic Party, even if they're really a democratic socialist. So until you change those structural obstacles to third party success, I think voters and candidates are going to go where the power is, and the power is in one of the two major parties.
Oh, what a wonderful world we are in. We're also out of time today. I want to thank Nia Malika Henderson and Frank Wilkinson. They are both columnists for Bloomberg Opinion for joining us today. I'm Tim O'Brien. I'm the senior executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion. This has been our politics live stream. We will hopefully see you all next week. Bring your friends, bring your family members, and bring Elon Musk. Thank you.